So first of all, welcome to Environment Arts, guys. My name is Amanda Sweeten. I'm your course director. For lab, you guys will be sharing lab with LVL, which is your level assembly and lighting course that you will get way further on down the road. Your lab specialist will be Logan Vargas. Dan will also be there. Dan Hutnick will be in there for LVL, but you can ask them both questions. I will be in there with you guys for the first part of lab as well. So from 3 to 4, I'll be in there with you guys, and then from 4 o'clock, you guys will take a break with the LVL guys, and then you'll return and continue your lab. So that during that time while I'm in lab, that's a really good time for you guys to actually get into your software, find out what problems you're actually having, because I know when you're watching lectures, you're like, oh yeah, this all makes sense, and then you sit down and do it, and you're just like, what? How did she do? So that's part of the reason why I like to hang out in there. I know you guys aren't new to that sort of thing with your course directors being in there, but please do feel free to ask me any questions during that time. And outside of that time, and see, here I go already depending on my slides. During that time, or outside of that time, if you need to get a hold of me, I do have a dedicated Environment Arts Slack channel that you guys can join, ask me questions. Logan will be on there as well. It goes directly to my phone, so it's really the easiest way, or fastest way to get a hold of me. I typically put it on snooze after 10 p.m. But that being said, I have been known to answer questions after that, because as you know, I did stay up till 4 in the morning last night. So if I do happen to see it and I'm able to answer, and it's a quick thing, post it on there. And if I'm not able to answer it, maybe somebody else will. I have previous months still on there as well, so I don't kick you guys once you leave my class. You're still able to exist on there. And the big reason why I use Slack instead of Discord is because I am a gamer, and so Discord is for fun, and then Slack is all work. I know Discord, you guys are probably a lot more familiar and use Discord probably on a pretty regular basis. So do I, but I like to mentally just unplug when I'm focused on games. So Discord is my gaming channel, and then Slack is my work hat. So that's why I went with the Slack channel instead of Discord. So course overview. So this is an environment art course. How many of you guys are interested in environments? Majority of you, that's awesome. Okay, characters? Animation? VFX? Something else? All of the above? Awesome. Okay, well, this month you guys are all environment artists, and it's all useful to you. So get comfortable or uncomfortable. Don't be afraid. That's the big thing that I want you guys to take away from here is you guys are students right now. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Make the mistakes, learn from them, and then fix them and redo them. You guys won't learn a thing if you don't make mistakes. So you may see me a couple times and you come and ask me a question. I'm like, well, did you try it first? And you'll be like, no, go try it. And if it doesn't work, I may know it's going to work or not work, but send you to go do it anyway. And again, this is just because I want you guys to learn from your mistakes. Don't be afraid to make them, because if you don't make them here, you're definitely going to make them out there, right? So you can't get fired from school, kind of, right? you know what I mean. So in this class, what I'm going to be focused on with you guys is modularity. Modularity is going to be the huge thing for this month. It's going to be the huge theme. Have any of you guys worked with dev kits or worked with creation kits or things like that come with games like modding? Have any of you guys done that? Have you noticed that the pieces are, they're not all these massive environments that are one piece, right? They are small sections that they've been built in kind of a modular fashion. So that's going to be the theme for this month, is all modularity. Our meshes are going to be modular. Our materials are going to be modular. Our lighting, in a way, is going to be kind of modular. Anyway, modularity is going to be the major theme for this month. I'm not saying that you can't make, custom pieces that aren't being repeated, but when you're focused on environments, repetition and modularity just helps streamline everything. It makes for a faster, more efficient workflow. You have a lot more pieces to work with, and you actually can end up with more unique environments the more modular you make your scenes become. So we're going to focus on creating tiling and procedural materials. How many of you guys have used Substance Designer before? Not Painter, but Designer. So Designer is node-based texturing. our node-based material creation. It'll be a little intimidating for you guys at first. It forces you to think logically and creatively at the same time. I do not expect you guys to master this software in a week, in a month. It took me a while to feel comfortable with the software. So it will feel a little uncomfortable at first. For some of you guys, it may click instantly, and for some of you guys, you may be like, I need to sit with you. This is how does this work? So we will use, kind of go baby steps, and I will show you guys some various resources that you can use that I myself use whenever I'm creating my own materials. I almost always have some sort of tutorial open, even if it has nothing to do with what I'm working on, because there's always a faster, more efficient way to do something that I haven't necessarily thought of, right? And one thing that you are going to probably learn, if you haven't already, is your course directors, we don't have the answers for literally everything. We don't know literally everything, but usually we know how to find the answers and can get the answers for you guys. So if there's something that you're not sure on how to do and it's not addressed in our lectures, just come ask me. Chances are I either know the answer or I can point you in the right direction. Okay? Cool. So we are going to focus on material blending as well as modular structural modeling and then some basic lighting all in Unreal. So you guys have gotten a little bit of Unreal already, right? Just a little kind of like a teaser. I think, what was it, Portfolio 3 was your first kind of Unreal course. And you guys had to work with modular kits in that, right? You had to, what was it, the Infinity Blade assets, yes. So you guys got to build, these really cool scenes with all of those modular pieces. So for this month, usually I don't allow you guys to work with outdoor scenes, but I've kind of pulling back on that. I don't know. I feel like I'm going to be very lax with what I'm going to allow you guys to work on. Now, the lectures will predominantly focus on interiors, but I may let you work on exteriors. I haven't really decided yet. I'm torn on that. We'll circle back to that. If there's anything that's unclear, and especially I know since I'm kind of going off script here, if there's anything that's ever unclear, please do not hesitate to ask me to repeat myself or kind of, further clarify. I'm happy to answer any of those questions. I try to make myself approachable via Slack, via being, in the labs, and then just trying to have casual dialogue with you guys in lecture. I don't really like lecturing at you guys. I like it to be kind of an overall involvement with the class as well, which is also why I have GoToTraining for online, because if any online students can participate, it kind of helps them. Hopefully it helps them in a way. Oh, Jonathan's on here. Cool. Hello, Jonathan. So for contacting me, as I mentioned before, I do have a dedicated Environment Art Slack. You can find this information on various locations on FSO, so in the About section, the email and etiquette, and I didn't post it in the announcements, but I'll post it in the announcements since I have it there anyway. So once you're in the Slack channel, and this is actually something that I've changed. I used to have private class channels, and I'm talking like just a few months ago, I had private class channels. So if you didn't want to post in general and you just wanted to speak to your specific class, you could do that. However, I don't really like that anymore. I found that most people just use general or privately messaged me anyway. So rather than just creating a bunch of channels, I got rid of the private class channels. So Slack, he's asking, is Slack the online lab for ear? I guess you could kind of see it that way. It just allows you to contact me outside of normal business hours. So sure, you can certainly use it as an online lab if you would like. My goal is that you guys will all kind of communicate with one another online and campus. That has only happened a little bit. It's not as much as I'd like, but it's getting a little bit more traction. So if you would like to use it as an open lab for online, that's fine. I don't ever shut it off, but that doesn't mean I'm always 100% active on there. It goes to my phone during kind of normal, and I say normal business hours, I'm available pretty much until 10 p.m. And then sometimes after if I'm feeling, up to it. So grading and course breakdown. So this is a little bit different for you campus guys, but I wanted to work, since I knew I had some online guys on here, I wanted to work with my online lecture slides instead. You guys actually don't have discussion posts because we, have a lot of dialogue in lecture anyway. And sometimes I'll do some lecture activities. So rather than have you guys do discussion posts where you talk online, even though you're sitting next to each other, I took those out for campus, but for online, they still had that discussion post. Again, I'm just trying to generate conversation between people, because I know you guys are kind of on your little online island, alone. So I'm just trying to, bridge that gap. So for them, professionalism for you guys and for online is still 10%. That's not really changed. Really what that means is, making sure that you're not a jerk on Slack and you're acting kind of in a professional manner. I used to have a week practice assignments. I took those out because they were severely outdated, and I addressed most of that stuff in lecture anyway. So really for professionalism, it's the same as it's always been for you guys. Be attentive, show up, don't be a jerk, and just act like adults, and then that'll get you your professionalism. And again, discussions, that 12% has been reallocated to you guys in your competencies instead. So rather than the 12% being in discussions, it has been put into the weekly competencies instead. Now, for grading the competencies, you guys are going to be thrown a lot of stuff this month. Can't talk. I need more coffee. Okay, you guys, let's try this again. You guys are going to be thrown a lot of information this month, a lot, and at a very fast pace. So when it comes to grading, really what I focus on is, did you follow directions? Does it look good? Are you demonstrating an overall understanding of the competencies? Because I know sometimes you may get a little overambitious on the environments that you create. If you don't finish it, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to fail. Really what I'm looking for, this isn't a portfolio class, right? So really I'm looking for an overall understanding of the competencies that I am giving to you guys, okay? So that's something to kind of keep in mind, and something that I have just as of this month changed. Because again, the goal for me is I would love to see you guys have a start to finish environment for the month, but realistically, you need a little bit more time to really, really flesh everything out, to polish, to, I don't know, kind of be obsessed with it, right? And so I'm really just looking for making sure that you guys can hit all of those competencies. I know I've said that like 3 times now. So moving forward, if files are too large for FSO, so I do have to keep this up here because I still, every month, I will get at least one person that says my files are too large for FSO. Where should I send them? And then it's after the due date, the deadline, and just upload to Google Drive, upload to Dropbox. I know you guys have Dropbox accounts created, at least from ACG. Send me a link, post it on there, email it to me, or again, post the link on FSO. Do whatever you need to do to get that uploaded and sent on time, okay? If your files are too large, that does not mean that you don't have to turn anything in. You laugh, but late submission policy. So I do have a late submission policy, and that is that it will receive an automatic loss of 6% per day that it's late, and then if it's after 5 days, it gets a 0, because again, then you're looking at kind of snowballing at that point, and you're just always going to be behind. So if you know that you're going to be late on your assignments, let me know, because I may be able to help you at least focus on priorities, and so that way you're getting the most optimized points for your submission. And I will probably still tell you to submit on time, and we'll go over, possible resubmissions, things like that. Just communicate with me is really all I'm getting at, right? Because I know how it goes as an artist. You start off looking at the large detail, but then you go to that fine detail really, really quickly, because you just get an idea and then you want to execute it, and then you find out, oh, okay, I've been focusing on this the whole time, and this is actually where most of my grade is, and yeah, I've kind of messed that up. So time management is going to be another thing that we're going to focus on this month as well. So software. In fact, I'm going to go ahead, and update this slide, because I have now updated to 4.2.1. Those of you guys that are on the Mac OS, hopefully you guys are all on Mojave. Is there anybody who's not on Mojave and they're still on Mavericks?
I'm not sure if I'm on Mavericks. I'm on High Sierra.
Oh, High Sierra. I don't know why I keep saying Mavericks. That was like forever ago, wasn't it? Man. Yeah, High Sierra. So you will need to update to Mojave, because a lot of, so Unreal 4.2.1 no longer works properly with High Sierra. And you need to make sure, if you're not going to update your OS this month, again, I really recommend that you do. This is going to ensure that everything is, you know, a well-oiled machine and moving really smoothly. But if for whatever reason you're not updating and you're sticking with High Sierra, you need to make sure that you have the correct Xcode version, and that is 9.4. And if you have 10 installed, you need to delete 10, and you'll have to go to the Apple developer website, log in. There's going to be like a whole page of things that makes it look like you need to download 10, but you'll want to go down to new downloads and download 9.4. If you need me to help you with that, just let me know and I'll walk you through that process, okay? Again, the easiest thing though is going to be updating to Mojave. I've not had any issues. I did update over the break, and so far I've not had any issues with it. All right. Let's see. So for Unreal, I did use 4.20 last month, but I have tested out 4.21, and so far it's worked pretty good. If I run into any hiccups along the way, you guys will see it happen live. So if I run into the hiccups, chances are you are going to as well. For Maya, we're going to mostly be using it for structural modeling, UVing, testing out our textures to see, kind of how they're working. We're going to use Substance Designer. You guys will be allowed to use Substance Painter. In previous months, I didn't allow this. I forced you guys all to just work in Substance Designer. There's only going to be 1 week where you're going to be working in Substance Designer. The rest, you will be able to use Painter. You'll be able to use Bitmap to Material. You'll really be able to use any resources available to you to get you the end results that you need. Because realistically, after you leave my class, you're going to get those same options anyway. So I do have a few constraints for you guys, but for the most part, I'm going to let you use whatever resources you need to use, okay? Any questions so far? I know I'm going through this part a little quickly. Cool. All right, well, welcome to Environment Art. This is hopefully the last time I will use my lecture slides for this portion of it. So I am going to kind of start things off with a bit of an activity, and that's really just making sure that you guys have every bit of software that you need. So I'm going to go ahead and escape. How many of you guys have heard of PureRef? You have it? Awesome. Awesome. And you've heard of it as well. Cool. So I just started using this recently, and it turns out it's a nice industry standard. Let me pull up a new window. So PureRef. So like I said, we're jumping right into pre-production here. So PureRef is a software that a lot of industry industry veterans use to do their pre-production, their mood boards, their reference sheets. Rather than having multiple pages or just a giant Photoshop, document, it allows you to just drag and drop images at their scale, their actual resolution, onto this software, and you can add in captions. You can add in, and by captions I mean text. My vocabulary is a mess today. I'm sorry? Yes, it's like exactly. It's an infinite reference board essentially. So what I did, and I didn't bring any with me because I wanted to download it here so you guys can kind of see that process. It is free. They do have a donate section. You guys are not required to donate. I did donate because Oh, you had to buy it? I'm sorry. Well, you can put a 0 here, and you can download that Mac version. I may have already downloaded it. We'll see. So then you just download it, and it's like, hey, download this thing. Okay. So it's a quick download, and I have, as I mentioned before, I have a ton of references that I've been gathering for different environments that I have wanted to create. One of the environments that I plan on creating is sort of a pirate ship deck. Again, it was way too ambitious to knock out in a short amount of time, but I did want to show you guys all the reference that I've gathered for it and kind of how I would make, how I made my mood board. It did. I was inspired by Atlas from playing it. Yeah, that's why I didn't play as much games as I wanted to, is because I got inspired by Atlas, and then I was like, well, not gaming anymore, because I can't play games and make art at the same time. That just they don't coexist for me. So I'm either an artist or I'm a gamer. I cannot be both for some reason. It's a sad world I live in. Sorry, again, I make really bad jokes. I wasn't mean for that to sound as dark as it did. So I'm going to go ahead and open up PureRef. So this is all it looks like. It's, very simple. This is kind of the left mouse is the marquee. If I want to move it around, I'm right mouse clicking. They do have a site where you can look at all the controls as well. So let's see, and again, I just started using this, so I'm going to be a little clunky with it myself. But let's go and find those references that I have. So I had this idea, and it is because again, my playing of Ark, that I wanted to make a pirate ship, but I wanted to make it just the interior, like a captain's deck with, and nobody stole my idea. I'm gonna make this, okay? A captain's deck that was gonna have all these like Kraken trophies. And then I wanted to have this live Kraken eye looking through, like it was gonna be like, I don't know, Kraken's Revenge, and but just have this really cool captain's deck where he's collected all these Kraken trophies, and then you just kind of have all of this cool blue lighting, and in the center it's just the glowing red Kraken eye, right? So that's what I was going to do. And again, because I can't game and art at the same time, I got to, you know, kind of the blackout phase of things, and I was like, oh, I'll come back to this. So I will come back to it. I do have a mood board that I've already created, but I will show you guys kind of my thought process and how I organized everything. So I do have a bunch of references that I've gathered either through Google Images, Pinterest, ArtStation, all of those things, and I have a lot. So I started off just really putting everything in one folder to begin with. And what's really cool about PureRef is you don't have to have these already existing on your computer to use them. So if, for example, I go to Pinterest, I know you guys can't see my screen yet. Let me move this here and this here. So let's say I wanted to work with a wine cellar tunnel. I could have this open and just drag it in, and it will go in at the resolution that I brought it in. So I can come in and I can zoom in and see a lot of this detail. And then I can also, I think it's Control and Alt, it might be Command and Alt with, yeah. So on the Mac side, it's Option Command to grow or shrink with your left mouse button. So it's really useful in that regard. And then you can just, you know, delete things if you need to. But when I'm making a reference board or mood board or whatever you guys want to call this, I usually will just do a whole reference dump, and then I'll start organizing them as, you know, my main inspiration. So I try to keep my main inspiration limited to 3 to 5 images max, because I feel like if I start having more than that, I lose kind of sight of what my main inspiration was. So when I was making this, and I wish I had the completed version in here, but I'm going to go ahead and just drag these in. Actually, let me do it this way, because it comes in a lot cleaner when I do it that way. And I'm going to make this window bigger so you guys can see it better. So really my main inspiration actually was this image here, but I really liked all of the cool lighting that surrounded and the contrast with, you know, the warm lighting. And so I really used this as my main reference image, as my main source of inspiration, not necessarily the structures, but what gave me my initial idea to begin with. And so this is, I'm able to just, you know, grow, scale these images up or down. If I wanted to title these, I could just hit Command N and write, you know, main inspiration. I can spell. There we go. And again, I can also hold Command and Option and increase the size of that. So I start there, and then I start kind of making, I guess, a bit of an inspiration web outside of that. So as you can see over here, I've organized them from main architecture that I enjoy, and I didn't put everything in here. I kind of just, again, was dividing everything up and deciding, you know, what I wanted to use as like my main architecture for everything. So in a modular sense, you know, what pieces did I want to have repeated? What pieces did I want to be, you know, main hero pieces? And I was looking through and seeing, okay, what are the obvious things that are being repeated for these, you know, ship cabins? And, you know, windows are a major thing. Everything kind of has an angle, so I knew that I was going to be making things at an angle. A lot of them have support beams. Well, that one's actually a really fancy one. So, you know, some support beams here, a lot of wood. Some of it's got wallpapering. So, and I also really kind of liked the sort of Gothic look as well. So I was going to make sort of the, again, I'm still playing around with the idea, I suppose, but I was going to make this sort of Gothic-y look. Try Alt Option +3. So Option 3 for transparency. Dope. Sorry. So what he showed me, and this is in the recording, you guys are gonna get to replay that. So he told me to hit Alt or the Option key in 3, and that makes your mood board transparent. So I could be flipping through other things or have it transparent while I'm working in Engine or in Maya, and just always have it there. And when I'm working on an environment, I like to always have my mood board open, because I don't like to just, despite how I've kind of presented myself, I don't like to drive blind when I'm creating art, because there's times where I think I know what something should look like, and I lose sight of my focus as well, and I'll start working on small detail and things like that. And that's something that I found myself doing, is I made kind of my structural blockout pieces, and then I went straight to like making this detailed gold Kraken thing, and I was like, that's not even an important piece of it. And then I started playing Ark, and that was, you know, it was game over after that. You know how it goes. How do I toggle it back off though? That's the question. Oh, one. Sweet. Thanks, Paul. See, you guys can teach me things too. It happens. So again, the main thing that I saw here was there was a lot of trim, there was a lot of beams, a lot of wood. So those are things that I would make sure that I had in my architecture reference. And you know, you asked me if I would use Photoshop for this. And really, when I'm working with my mood board, the only thing that I use Photoshop for is I would take whatever my main structural reference was, which in this case was this, and I would go in and I would kind of outline what I wanted the silhouette to be, because it made the blocking out process a lot easier for me to do, because I was already visualizing it. I didn't have to experiment nearly as much. So I kind of went with this as my main architectural inspiration. So my reasoning for showing you guys this is I want you to kind of start adopting this workflow. I feel like there's just not enough time spent in pre-production, and really you guys don't, and myself included, you lose sight of the vision because you don't really know what the end vision is supposed to be, right? You have an idea, and until you have things that kind of inspire you, you're driving a little blind and hoping for a good end result, right? Or you're working with one reference image and you're like, well, if it doesn't look like an exact match of the reference image, I'm screwed, right? So it also gives you guys a little bit more ownership of your projects as well. If you're just creating, you know, an environment based off of a single reference image, if it's a good reference image, there's probably going to be others like it too, right? So I wanted to start introducing this to get you guys thinking of making your own pieces rather than trying to draw from one single inspiration. Now, if you looked at FSO ahead of time, you're going to see that that is the opposite of what I have shown in previous months. In previous months, I have you guys working with one single reference image. Now, I will say that I will still allow you guys to do that. If you want to just work with one reference image and create an asset breakdown sheet for it and work in that workflow, I'm totally fine with that. I just want you guys to know that there are other options and other better, in my opinion, better ways to do this, especially if environments are something that you want to do, right? You want to kind of have that full ownership. Even with characters, this does not limit to just environment art. You know, you would probably want to do the same thing when it comes to creating a character. You don't want to create a character based off of something that already exists, right? You want to make your character that's yours, that is completely yours, and you can draw inspiration from other things. That's what we do as artists. You know, we pull inspiration from things that have been previously created. So really, when you guys, what I'm going to be looking for, regardless of if you decide to do a single reference image or, a single environment based off of a reference image, I still want you to pull in and get more reference images for the things that you're going to create. But I want you guys spending a lot of time Okay. I want you guys spending a lot of time. I don't know where I want to put this right now. Really solidifying what your game plan is, what your goals are for the month. You know, do you want to make a large environment? Do you want to make a corridor? Do you want to make, you know, something sci-fi? I used to not even allow concept art as a reference option, and I'm backtracking on that now because I feel like there's so much inspiration that comes from concept art, and I'm not training you guys to be ArcViz artists, right? I'm trying to train you guys to be environment artists. And so I felt like by cutting out the concept art, that was really stifling any sort of creativity that you could have possibly had, right? Now, I do want to say you should still draw from real life reference because, again, this is how things are really built. But I'm going to really let you guys kind of take control over how much references you gather, how much I don't know, how much you're inspired by something. And I really just want you to kind of go for it. I still want you to focus on the competencies that I'm going to be giving you guys, and that's going to be modularity for this week. Again, I'm really, really looking for modularity, pieces that you can repeat, reuse, and you know, get more bang for your buck out of, right? If you look at the room that we're in, for example, it wasn't really made out of one piece, right? Even this wall here, do you think this is just one giant piece of drywall? If anybody's ever built a house or seen a house in construction form, I can assure you that's not the case. So this is made, you know, technically it's made very modularly, and then it is worked over to look seamless. And that's the same process when it comes to making environment art, is it's made in parts, but it's meant to look seamless. So that's what I'm going to want you guys to focus on, is when it comes to, you know, did you complete the competencies? You know, are you working modularly? Are you working efficiently? Is your stuff snapping to grid? Are your pivots placed correctly? How's your lighting looking, etc.? Feels really weird not following my lecture slides right now. So again, I'm going to show you guys kind of how I broke everything down. I did architecture, environment, and by environment, I just mean, I guess, more or less is my structural pieces. No, because I've got architecture here. Environment. I don't really know why I went with environment instead, but inspiration was a big thing. And again, I also went through and grabbed a lot of Kraken reference. So I also wanted to have like a Kraken eye and sort of this grotesque eye in a jar, like an embalming jar or something. I don't know. I had it was break. Yeah, we'll see if I actually get it done. Yeah, so we'll see if it happens. It's probably, like I said, I'm working on 3 different projects right now, and so sometimes I'll work on this. Sometimes I'll work on another thing. So maybe for this, to keep things simple, because I do want to show you guys kind of some workflows rather than like, all right, that's lecture, go do things, and you guys will be like, what are we doing? So let's see, we're at 144. I think we can kick some stuff out. So let's not work with this as a main inspiration. Let's just say I wanted to, again, if I'm thinking in a modular mindset, let's say I wanted to do like a mine shaft, like an old school, you know, mine shaft. So kind of my process in starting that is I pull up old Google and I just start Google searching for images. Let's see, mine shaft. And then I'll get a lot of Minecraft. Like that'll happen for sure. Let's see. There we go. There it is. So I'll probably go through and pull out a lot of inspiration from these. I'll find something where I like the silhouette, and really I'm kind of into, you know, these sort of things kind of being that silhouette, but I also like the support beams in here. And I've got to decide, you know, what time period do I actually want this to be from? You know, what theme am I going with? And I'll look at this for material reference as well. So that is something else that I also make sure that I have on my mood board is material reference, because that's going to determine, all right, is it tiling, or am I going to have to make a unique texture out of this, like going into Substance Painter or something like that, right? So let's just gather a few here, and we'll just go into Unreal. We'll start the project part of it. I'll show you guys how to work with BSPs, and then I'll show you how to go into Maya and work with the character reference as well. So you guys will kind of have 2 options when it comes to your block out. Again, you'll see on FSO that I go really heavy into BSPs, And I really like working with BSPs because it does allow you to kind of instantly play test and prototype very quickly. But I also know that it can get a little bit confusing, especially because it can sometimes be used as modeling software instead, and I don't want you guys doing that. And so I'm okay with you guys doing your blockouts in Maya as well. So I'll show you 2 different workflows with that. And if we don't get to everything today, it'll just carry over into Wednesday. All right. So like I said, it's going to be a very fluid class this week. But I do think it's going to net better results for you guys. So new year, new way to work on things. And as the previous classes are transitioning into more updated content, I will, be able to actually push my updated content that I've created. But until then, we're just gonna wing it. All right. So I'm gonna just start bringing in some reference images that I like, and probably won't do too many. I'll probably just grab, I don't know, 3 or 4. And usually, again, I spend a lot of time on pre-production. I'm talking with that pirate ship one, I spent an entire 6 hours going back and forth, sketching, putting reference images in, coming up with different ideas and scenarios. I'll show you guys, and I wish I had shown you or sent over the file that I did this in. I'll show you guys on Wednesday what that end result looked like, because I've got words, I've got an asset breakdown list, I've got various props in there, I've got material reference. It is like a giant web of stuff. So again, I want you guys really, really focused on pre-production, because it's really going to be a nice roadmap from you from start to finish on where your end goals are, what your main priorities are going to be, and then it's kind of like a need to have, would love to have, and then here's some extra fluff to throw in, right? So it's kind of the mindset that I want you guys to have when you're working on this stuff. So again, I'm not going to spend too much time on the pre-production part of it, which is why I'm going with the Mineshaft, because it's, if you look, it's fairly simple, but it can be broken up really modularly, pretty easily and very quickly. So I'm probably going to go this route. And I don't know that I'll have anything on the sides here yet. I might just duplicate what's going on over here and over. But I do want to get some other sources in here too, and not just work off of one reference image. It just happened to be a pretty good reference image for me at that time. Let's see. And you guys are welcome to follow along with this if you want. I don't mind, because it's going to be like a little awkward, you guys sitting in silence watching me scroll through things. Let's see, maybe some cave walls to add in here. So maybe I'll have some of that kind of creeping through. Let's see. Maybe I'll look at what the tracks look like. Maybe less aged. Mineshaft trail, what's that mean? Not what I'm looking for. Yeah, I kind of dig this one too. That one's got like some interesting rock formation. So maybe what I'll do is I'll have a wall where it's, kind of the cave portion of it, and then another area where it's had, some boards put up on it. So this, again, my mind is just thinking of various ideas right now, just based off of some images that I've seen, right? Now, again, because of time, I can't spend the hours that I would love to spend, fully realizing this. But maybe I'll go home and do it and start a 4th project. Let's see how that goes. So I'm just going to start with these three images. Yeah. I teach art, I actually also really, this is cool. Just like sorry, so you guys can see what's kind of going on. I was like, this is neat. Maybe I'll add that in, and then it started doing this. Okay. And one of the things that I also like to have, I want this, is a focal point at the end. It's nice, to have modular pieces. There we go. Now I have 4. but it's also really cool to have kind of a hero thing, something that your eye is immediately drawn to. I don't know if I was replicating this one image, my eye, would be drawn here, but also here because of the contrasting colors. So this is my main inspiration. So I'm just going to go ahead and put that in. Spelled it right that time. Now from here, I would want to know, okay, what sort of assets do I need? Well, I know I would need, some sort of lighting. That's going to have to happen. I'm going to need walls. I'm going to need, my structural pieces. All right, now what are my breakups going to be? And that's kind of how I would continue to expand that out. And on Wednesday, I promise I will show you guys a better executed mood board. And I don't know, maybe actually I can possibly get it sent to me. My roommate's home. He can probably send it to me and I can show you guys in lab and show you guys a better executed, more fleshed out inspiration board. Because again, I really want you guys spending time on this. Even if you're just working with a single reference image, there are still going to be things in that reference image that you're going to need close-ups on. You're going to still need that asset breakdown sheet. You're still going to need, what props are you going to need? That sort of thing. The nice thing about working this direction versus trying to recreate a reference image is nobody's going to know if you need X amount of props versus, oh, I made this reference image and you have no props in your created environment, but the reference image has props, it has different lighting. You're going to be expected to do all of those things. With going this route, it's whatever you want it to look like as an end result, right? Now, obviously, there's some scale and proportion things here. It's not like you can make it, this massive thing. But it gives you a lot more creative freedom. So have I soapboxed on this enough for you guys? Are you ready to get an engine a little bit? All right, let's do that. So spend time, one last thing, spend time on this, please. If you spend the entire lab time working on this, I'm totally fine with that. You guys will, if you are working smarter and not harder, you'll find that you can get a fully realized environment very quickly, actually. So let's go ahead and jump into Unreal. I'm going to show you guys kind of the whole project startup. So I would like you guys to kind of follow along with this part. So we're going to go ahead and launch Epic. I am using 4.21. I know my lecture slides are a little confusing there. No, it's funny. I had on FSO, I put on there the version that we're using is 4.20, and I said an asterisk underneath. I said, do not use 4.20. I have not tested this yet, so it was just something I forgot to delete out. But yeah, I had Paul message me. He's like, so your wording's a little confusing. Could you clarify? I was like, sure. And then I looked. I was like, yeah, that would be confusing. So that is fixed. You can use 4.20. I'm fine with that. But I like to work on the more current version, just because I like to see what sort of hiccups may happen along the way, and I really like doing them live as well, because again, if something is not working in the workflow that I usually use, I would love to see that happen live. So again, you guys can see how I troubleshoot it and how I would fix it. So do you guys ever look at the Epic launcher at all, like what's going on here? If you don't, you can be honest. So have you guys heard that they're trying to compete with Steam? Yeah. I don't know how I feel about it. I mean, I think I'm cool with it. No, they just started. But, for the marketplace, for example, there's free stuff on here. Grab those free things, guys. I'm assuming they'll be free forever, but they're free. Grab them, learn with them, see how things are built, reverse engineer this stuff. That is going to be a really fast way for you guys to learn more, modern techniques and how people are creating some of this stuff. Get it. It's free. It's right there. Take it. All right. And they also have a learning section, which is, it's nifty. That's true. I do recommend getting an external hard drive for that. Anyway, so when it comes to, let's go to the engine itself. There's a lot of interesting announcements that you can find here. You can get their wiki, their roadmap, blog, etc. So we're going to go to the library. As far as engine versions go, if you ever need to download a previous version, you just hit this plus sign, this drop-down arrow, it will take you to all of those previous versions should you need it. I don't in this case. They do kind of get a little large in size after a while. On my PC, for example, I had 112 gigs just in engines alone, engine versions alone that I haven't used in probably 6 months. So I went there and cleaned all that up. But we are going to work with 4.21.1. Again, 4.20 is fine with me too if you want to work in that. It doesn't take too long to download 4.21 though. So I'm going to go ahead and launch this, get you guys started on how I want you to create your projects, organization, folder structure, all of that good stuff. And then I'm going to quickly go over BSPs and why I like using them and then why I don't like using them sometimes as well. And I think we're doing okay on time. We're doing okay. We're okay on time. Because I would like to get you guys out of here by 2:45 so we can go to lab. It'll give you enough time to kind of have a bit of a break, stretch your legs, all that good stuff. Lab is going to be in 4B132, I believe. I've never been in 132 before. Oh, I love when classrooms don't exist. Yeah, I don't. That's weird to me. Yeah, I would assume the map is wrong. That's what I thought, is it is the front right room, because then you've got 130, yeah. So let's just, if we don't find it, let's just all meet in 4B in the lobby area and we'll find it together. But I'm pretty sure it's that front right room. All right, so when you're starting an Unreal project, I want you guys working with the first person blueprints. I am somewhat okay with the third person, but if your stuff doesn't look good in first person, you know, third person isn't always going to fix that. But if your stuff looks good in first person, it's guaranteed to look good in third person too, okay? So I do want you guys working in first person here. We are not working with starter content. Do not use starter content. It will make your files unnecessarily large with assets that we're not going to use this month. For the first, well, since I've changed things around, but say for the first week, you shouldn't have to submit a link, a Google Drive link. But with PureRef, you know, sometimes those files can actually get a little bit larger depending on how far you go with those mood boards. So maybe you will have to upload. We'll see. So again, we're not working with starter content. If you find that your computer, your laptop, you know, has not been performing its best recently, you know, maybe one too many games installed or, I don't know, streaming things, we'll go over the quality in Engine. So for now, just keep it at maximum quality. I'll show you guys how you can change that performance so that way it moves a little bit smoother for you. But do know that when it comes to taking your beauty shots, you're going to want to crank that up so you can get the best beauty shots for it. Project name, this is very important as far as what you're going to name your project. It's kind of a pain to change it afterwards, so get this right the first time, please. Okay, I don't do very well with code, so if you make me go into code to try to help you figure out how to change your project name, I'm going to be fussy. I'll still help, but I'm going to be fussy. It's just not my strong suit. Now, as far as locations goes, by default, your Unreal projects will be saved in the Documents folder, in the Unreal Projects folder. If you want this to be saved somewhere else, you need to tell it where you want it to save. I'm okay on my Mac for it to be saving in this folder with my PC though. I don't want it saving on my C drive, so I have a separate folder on my D drive that I put it in. So if you guys are working with something where you have, you know, maybe a separate drive that you want it to be on, this is going to be where you change that, all right? So for this, I'm just going to name this 1901, right? Will not let me start with numbers. So we'll call this week 1, lecture 1, underscore 1901. Very boring naming. You guys can name yours or whatever you want. Usually last name, first initial's fine, or whatever your project is going to be. I'm fine with that because you guys will be uploading it on FSO in your named section anyway, so it's not like I'm going to have a hard time identifying who it belongs to. Just make sure that you're naming it something that makes sense to your scene or to it being you. Does that make sense? Cool. So I'm going to do create project. And something that I'm going to do for you guys as well, since I am, recording, also make sure that you allow these outcoming network connections. Otherwise, you may not be able to build your lighting and things like that. But I am going to go through and I will timestamp this recorded lecture as well, again, so you guys don't have to watch the whole recording over again or have to scrub through. It may take me just a little bit of time to get that on there, but you guys will have access to it today, and that goes for online as well, all right? All right, so now that we're in Unreal, we'll start with a new level. And in previous months, I did not allow you guys to work with the default lighting. I have since changed my mind on that. So we can work with the default lighting. You may find that you don't need a directional light moving farther on, but for now, we'll keep it this. I do, however, want you deleting the floor. I want you guys making your own assets for this. Have any of you guys worked with BSPs before? Does anybody know what BSPs are? You're mumbling. I can't tell what you're saying. Okay. Do you have a guess? Very, very close. Very, very close. I want to say yes, but there's a little bit more to it than that. So BSPs are, yes, they're essentially builder brushes. They work a lot like Booleans, so you can add and subtract with them. I do not want you guys using this as modeling software, and I will show you why in just a few short moments why this should not be used as modeling software or your in-game meshes. But it's really, really good for prototyping the scene. And in fact, let me use that nifty little trick that you showed me. Was it called? Screw? Yeah, I am super into this. Thank you for showing me that as it goes away. I could have it, and see, I will probably just keep it on the other screen because I feel like it's going to be very distracting for you guys to see this over here. So I'm going to bring this to my other screen just so I have it when I'm blocking things out. And that's really all I ever use BSPs for, is blocking out. So I can test out my scale and proportions, figure out how it feels. It's just very good for rapid prototyping because I can place assets, I can play test it. If it doesn't feel right, I hit escape and I make adjustments on the fly without ever having to leave the engine. So I do like it in that regard. In other regards, it's kind of a pain to mess with if you're not used to working with them. So sometimes for me, it's just faster to go into Maya, bring in a character, bring in that character FBX from Unreal, and just block out there. So I'm going to be using kind of both of those versions. And again, as you guys potentially saw, I go very, very heavy on the BSPs in previous months. And I'm just kind of trying to step back from that because it's not so much about what you use to block out. It's just how you do it and making sure that it's done correctly and making sure that your scale and proportions are done correctly. Because at the end of the day, if your scale and proportions are off, your entire environment is going to be off. And the blockout phase is so, so important because you don't want to go in and get all of your in-game modeling done only to find out that your scale and proportions are wrong, right? It takes a lot longer to fix that than it would be just a couple of cubes. So there are two different things in here. We've got cube, sphere, cylinder, cone, etc. These are all static meshes. So as you can see, they're identified as static meshes. And I want you guys using those when you're working with your blockout. They have limited editing capabilities, and you may as well just be in Maya then working on them. So make sure if you're working with BSPs that you're in the geometry mode. So once I place this, there's a couple things that you can work with. And as I mentioned before, they work a lot like Booleans. You can even see here, they have an add and subtract. But you can also change it here in the brush settings. Now, if at any point I'm going too fast, let me know. I do go over these in previous lectures as well as like smaller videos also. So they are there for you to look at. But the way to know is that they are identified as a brush type. That's how you know that you're working with the BSPs. A lot of times I'll label these as well as the proxy mesh that they're standing in for. And when I'm first starting off, I like to start everything off at 0, 0, 0. It's just a good spot to have your main, starting point to be for your assets. It's here. Now, when I'm working with a floor, have you guys worked in the different orthographic views before? It used to be that you guys didn't get Unreal until my class, and so I've been able to slowly update things, so it makes me happy. I think this is one of your guys' first senior level courses, I think. Yeah, you guys are seniors. Okay, welcome to your first senior level course, guys. I'll be here all month. All right, so in the orthographic view, when I'm making, I always start with my floor. That's just me. If you guys want to start with your walls instead, that's fine. I'm not telling you how to make things, right? I'm assuming since you've made it to my senior level course, that you guys know how to model. So I'm not going to be teaching you guys modeling techniques per se, but I am going to be showing you guys how to optimize, again, how to get the most out of your model and how to make sure that your pieces are all snapping together to just ensure a smooth workflow. So when I'm working with my floor, I always like to start it at the same level as the origin. Again, I know my character is going to just pop right into there. It just makes things easier for me. So the only time you can marquee select in Unreal is actually in the orthographic view. It is twitchy though. As you can see, I'm like all the way over here. And the only way that you can select different pieces is if you're in the geometry editing mode. So we have our placement mode and we have the geometry editing mode. So this is how you guys are going to be able to edit these BSPs a little bit further. So I'm just going to marquee select these pieces here. I don't really need my floor piece to be that thick. Also, something that you want to make sure of is that your pieces are snapping together. As you guys can see here, Unreal is measured out in meters. If you middle mouse button, you can also, again, it's a little twitchy on these other monitors, but you can measure specific scales using that tool as well, which is really nice. So again, due to time, I'm going to kind of speed through this process. I'm not going for perfection or anything like that. I'm really just wanting to show you guys the overall techniques and principles when it comes to working with BSPs. I have plenty of videos that go over this process, but I did want to just kind of walk you through this really quickly. So let's see, we've got 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, good enough. And I'm going to go to a different orthographic view and just make sure, since it's a mine shaft, I do want it to be, I don't want it to be a perfect square, I want it to be slimmer going through. So let's see what we have here. So after I've got my width, I'll test this out in just a moment. I'm not limited to just grabbing the vertices. I can also grab the faces when I'm in the geometry editing mode with BSPs. And I'm not really focused on a whole lot of modularity when I'm working with BSPs. That's something that's kind of different between blocking out in Maya versus blocking out with BSPs. I feel like trying to have a modular workflow working with BSPs is just super clunky. Trying to make sure that all your pieces snap together, your pivots are off at that point. It just gets a little messy when it comes to trying to build things modularly inside of Unreal working with the BSPs. Now, is it possible? Absolutely. Like, you could certainly work with a modular workflow and say, you know, here's floor piece 1, floor piece 2, etc., and duplicate it and snap it together. But you're going to be doing that anyway when you bring it back into Unreal. So I usually don't work modularly. I just get my large forms kind of blocked out, and then I export it into Maya to use as kind of a template for making my in-game meshes. So really quickly, I'm going to go ahead and put a wall here, and then I'm just going to play test to just see how the width of the walls feel and the height of the ceiling feels for this mine shaft environment that I'm kind of pseudo creating. So I do want to get another piece here. And a lot of times I like to just snap my walls to my floor because realistically that's how it works, right? Other people like to snap, you know, the bottom of their walls to the bottom of their floors. I don't really like doing that. I like snapping my walls to my floors. Again, I'm not going to tell you guys how to do it. But again, it'll make things easier for you if you have your pieces snapping together, especially when working modularly. You always want those pieces to snap to one another. Otherwise, it kind of breaks up the whole point. Now, when it comes to working with planes instead of dense geometry, this will pertain more to lighting. So it'll be up to you guys if you want to work with, and when I say plane, you guys know what I mean when I'm talking about working with modular planes instead of dense geometry, right? Does anybody not know what I mean? Okay, so think silhouette, right? Some of you guys have worked with modding kits. You've seen how they don't always have backs, the geometry, right? So it'll be up to you guys if you want to work with your geometry having backs, because again, if you're working on an interior, the player's not going to see the outside. But when it comes to lighting, if you do plan on having any sort of sunlight coming through, you're going to want to have backs and sides. You're going to want that geometry to be closed off, because when you're working with modular meshes, you don't want light bleeding to happen. And if you don't have supporting geometry back there, you're going to get light bleeding through your meshes. And then again, that breaks the whole modular system, okay? But if you don't plan on having any light coming in from the outside, you probably are going to be just fine working with the planes, because the sunlight won't be coming through that geometry then. Does that make sense? This will make a little bit more sense once we get to lighting. But I just wanted to kind of bring that up now. So I'm just going to do something like this for my walls for now. And I'm going to duplicate my floor. Let's see. I'm going to have this nice mirror tool, so I'm going to mirror. Oops, I'm going to duplicate that. So I'm just holding down the Alt key to duplicate it, and then I'm going to hit mirror in the Y and then snap back, just so my front faces are facing each other and my back faces are facing the right way. Which I don't want to do that yet. I'm going to go ahead and bring this up. Something like this. I'm going to go ahead and now duplicate this. So I'm holding down the Option key to duplicate. Now the reason why if I hit Command D, oh, it fixed it. No, it didn't. So it used to be when I would hit Command D, it would duplicate, but it would pop it out of place just a little bit, which would break my snapping. It wouldn't pop out to the next grid unit. It would just pop it out a little bit so that way I can grab it, which is nice. But if I'm trying to grid snap to things, it messes up my whole grid snapping. So I usually just hold down the Option key to duplicate it and then mirror my geometry from there. And I'm about to play test it. So I'm going to do the same thing with my floor. It's going to be my ceiling. Notice that my pivots are off. I'm not really concerned about them. I'm not going to be using these as my in-game meshes. I'm really just prototyping the overall feel of this. So to play test, I'm going to come over here and hit play. And alrighty, how do you guys feel about the scale of this mine shaft so far? One says small, one says big. Or tall. Yes. So one thing that I've noticed about my references. No, come on, you can do it, I believe. There we go. Is, they feel a little claustrophobic, right? So I definitely want to bring the scale of this down. And that's what's really nice, again, about working with BSPs is now I can hit escape and I can go ahead and rescale all of that stuff very quickly. So I'm going to bring that back and show you guys kind of that process. So for now, I'm just going to bring these in just a little bit further. I can scale this here in just a moment, but I want to just test this out. Let's see how this feels. Now I have to remind myself that I will have, some support beams and things like that. That's also going to affect the overall depth of this. Because if we look at this, if we look at this, we've got these support beams that make it feel like it's a little bit more, the scale is smaller than what it actually is. And the minimal light kind of helps with that. Well, it's enough of you. So let's just play test that really quickly and see how we feel about that. Sorry, one moment. When I'm working on multiple monitors, sometimes it gets a little finicky. There we go. All right, so how do you guys feel about this? Feels a lot better, right? Because I don't want it to be one person wide, because there would be mine carts in here. There'd probably be multiple people working in here. They would still be in, really close proximity. I may even make it a little bit more narrow but taller, not by much. Again, it's what's really nice about this is I can hit escape, test it out, and say, oh no, that's actually, now it's too tall and too narrow. But I can test that stuff out very quickly. So that's the beauty about BSPs, which is really nice, and again, very good for prototyping. But it doesn't really allow me to kind of work modularly like being in Maya would, right? So I do have videos going over the export process of BSPs once you have finished, doing your block out with BSPs, if that's the route that you want to go. Again, I go through that whole process, not only in the lecture slides, but full lectures and smaller lecture videos. So if that's the route that you guys want to go, you're more than welcome to. Do you guys have any questions about this process before I just jump into Maya? Okay, we're going to jump into Maya then. Actually, first, so since we started the project, I do want to go over some housekeeping things, and I have some things that I can save. So when you guys are making your Unreal projects, folder structure is very important to me. There's very few things that I'm like super nitpicky on. Folder structure is one of those things that I'm super nitpicky on. And the big thing is because there's all these different folders, and I have seen student folders existing like in the deepest corners of some of these folders. So what I want you guys doing is anything that you want graded by me, select the content folder, create a new folder, give it your last name, first initial, or your first name, or whatever. Just give it a named folder, and I want all of your stuff that you want graded in your named folder. I do not want to go searching through first person, blueprint, geometry, etc. Inside of this, you guys are going to have subfolders. You're going to have a meshes folder, for example. And inside that meshes folder, and kind of it's really up to you on how organized you want to be with your folder structure. But I want it to be simplified to meshes, materials, and textures. I'm okay with you guys putting your entire level just in your named folder. Yes, Joseph? How do you duplicate the BSP? Yeah, you hold down the Alt or Option key and drag. Yep. Yep, you can grab the whole object and hold down the Option key. So you'll want to hold it down and then drag. So in this folder, you need to have a minimum of materials, meshes, and textures. So materials and textures are two different things. Also, do not make subfolders for your materials or textures. That's a lot of clicking for anybody to have to do. Just put all of your materials in your materials folder, put all of your textures in your textures folder. Now, when it comes to meshes, I'm okay with you guys breaking them up from structural to props to extra or whatever. I'm okay with that. But as far as materials and textures go, I want them all just housed in those folders, not extra subfolders, okay? Does that make sense? Super. So that's the main thing that I'm a huge stickler on, is just making sure that I can go directly to your guys' folder and find everything that I need there and not have to be like, all right, where's their static meshes at? Where's their maps at? Because I realize, there's things labeled this, but if you have it like this, I'm able to just go right to your folder and find everything that I need. Now, when it comes to saving, I'm going to go ahead and do a file, save current as, and inside of my named folder, I'm going to go ahead and just name this BSP map. You guys can name your stuff whatever you want, and it'll just live, in my named folder. Now, after I've named it here, I'm always going to just do a save all. What this is going to do is it's going to save your project and it's going to save your level. If you do save current as, it won't always save everything. So just to be on the safe side, do a save all. If I change anything, it's really nice, even if I've just saved and I go to close and it says, hey, these things have changed since the last time you've saved. And sometimes I have like a list of things that have changed and I'm like, oh, I thought I saved recently. So if that happens, it does give you a nice warning on, hey, all of these things have changed since you've last saved. Do you want to go ahead and save it? I don't, because I don't really want it looking like that, and I've shut it down. So we're at 221, okay. We can probably get to the blockout part of things in Maya, but for the most part, we're going to be focused on getting your Maya set up to match Unreal's. In fact, I'm going to open Unreal back. Oh, I don't really need to open Unreal back up. We'll go over the importance of pivot placement. We'll go over the importance of grid snapping. So I want you guys today, and really today only, is focusing on your pre-production and focusing on your block out of things, all right? So I'm going to go ahead and open up Maya. How are you online guys doing? Good. Derek, have I had you before? Don't think so? Okay. I had a Derek Billy do in previous months. I mean, he's long since graduated, so I didn't know if you were auditing or not. All right. So really quickly, I want to go ahead and just reset my grid so you guys can see. So I'm going to really quickly show you guys how to set up your grid to match Maya's, or to match Unreal's. So as I mentioned before, Unreal is measured in units, and we want to make it so that every unit in Maya's grid matches Unreal. So we want 1 unit to 1 unit is essentially what we want to do. So we're going to go to display. We're going to go to grid, the length and width. So this number can vary. I would keep it, to the tens. For me, I typically will have it be at 10,000 because my environments tend to be a little bit larger. But at a minimum, I would make it 1,000. So for now, I'll put it at 1,000. The grid lines every. This is what your snapping tolerance is going to be. By default, Unreal snapping tolerance is set to 10, so I like to start with it at 10. If for whatever reason I need to change it, I may change it to 5 from time to time. That's usually for smaller pieces that are meant to snap to something else. But for the most part, I highly recommend just keeping it matching Unreal's default tolerance. Subdivisions, I like to just, again, keep it at a 1-to-1 setting. So once I hit apply, this is what it looks like. Notice that I have some camera clipping happening here. You guys are probably going to as well. You're going to want to fix this. So I'm going to come over here to my camera attributes. I always like to change my near clip plane to 1. And my far clip plane, I just add in a couple more zeros. And so now I can kind of zoom out a lot farther if I need to. Now this is only for the perspective view. So if you're wanting this to be on your other orthographic views, I've done this in previous times. Make sure that you change that if you need to. Okay, good so far? Cool. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in that character FBX. And I'll make sure that you guys have this on FSO as well should you need him. Because I'm just going to use him for blocking out. Let's see, do I have that on here? No, I've got him in here somewhere. Maybe I don't have him. Let's see. There it is. All right, where is that? No. No, I really wish that the max would tell you where that location is. I don't think it's going to let me just drag it in here. Yeah, I didn't think so. I may have just crashed. I may have just crashed my. Oh, no, it did work. Okay, so I was able to just drag this guy in. Awesome. So I'm going to use this as, again, my scale reference. This is probably something that is not unfamiliar to you guys, right? I'm going to put him on his own layer. And just make it so I can't select him. So again, I'm kind of going to work in a similar process that I did working with the BSPs. Ooh, want to show you guys really quickly why I don't use BSPs as my in-game meshes. So let's see. Let's see around there. There we go. There it is. Let's see what this looks like. There we go. So this is a BSP that I did to just kind of block out the door of something. So first of all, look at this geometry. You guys like working with this kind of stuff? How would you like to clean this up? Oh, it gets better. Wait for this. Let's zoom in here a bit. Oh, yes. Not only that, unmerged birds. The horror. Yeah. So if you do work the BSP method, make sure that you guys are just using these for scale and proportion references. I had a student 1 month that was like really into working with BSPs. He's like, oh, I want to model everything using BSPs. I'm like, don't do it. I'm telling you, don't do it. And he had, I mean, it looked really nice, but he brought it in and was like, I don't know how to work with this. So yeah, again, it's not meant to be modeling software. You guys know how to model. Work with your modeling software that you know. Don't spend forever trying to clean stuff like this up. So I did want to show you guys kind of that process. But what's really nice about it is I do know exactly how wide I would want to make my doorway. I know how tall I'd want to make my doorway, and I know how wide and tall the actual door or the wall itself would be as well. So again, that's something that's really nice to kind of work with when I go in to make my in-game meshes. All right, so that's that. So when working in a modular workflow, pivot placement is very important. You want to place your pivots where you want your mesh's snapping points to be, okay, or where you want the object to orient from. So a lot of times this will be on typically an upper or lower corner of a mesh. The thing is you want to make sure that this is consistent throughout all of your meshes. So if you are placing your pivot placement on the, I don't know, top left corner, front corner of your meshes, you want to make sure that you're doing that with all of them, that they all have the same snapping points, okay? It's just going to make things easier for you. I also highly recommend turning on your grid snapping. Since your grid matches Unreal's right now, it makes sense that you want all of your pieces to snap to the grid, right? Kind of a theme this month is going to be, you know, the grid's your friend. You'll hear me say that a lot. So in order to snap or move my pivot, do you guys know how to move pivots? Yep, hold D, and I'm just going to snap to this vert, and V, middle mouse. And with this grid snap turned on, it allows me to just kind of get started very quickly. So I'm just going to block out some things here. And I think I want to just put 2 guys in here just so I know kind of how far I want this to be, or how wide I want this to be. So I want roughly, you know, 2 people to be able to fit into this. And let me put him back. You can do something like that. So I know that I want at least 2 people to fit into the mine shaft. They're friends. And so I'm going to scale everything up kind of based on that. Now, when I'm doing the blockout phase, I mean, I could be more meticulous and put in number values and things like that, but a lot of times I eyeball it and see what feels good. The same spot, yeah. So this allows me to, again, kind of work in a more modular workflow. So I know that I want my floor pieces. I cannot talk today. Let's see. Something like this. It's kind of where I want to start. And for my wall, I'll kind of just do the same thing. I'll just start locking in these shapes. And I'll move my pivots. I'll move my pivots several times when I'm modeling just to get where I need quickly. And I think I'm already thinking I need to make this wider than the two people. I don't know yet. I'm excited. But again, that's what's really nice with working with basic meshes first, is I'm basically just making myself my own little modular kit, and I'm already thinking I definitely want to make this wider. So I'm going to just move this to something that makes a little bit more sense. And you guys are going to see me work in halves quite a bit, so you'll see me probably put an edge loop in here and then delete the other half, so that way I can just mirror it over. In fact, I'm going to do that instead. Do something like this. And then have my pivot here. No, I'm going to have my pivot here. Okay. I don't know what that was. He was pretty excited, yeah. So it feels a little bit better to me. Let's see. No. Yeah. There we go. Let me put this here for a moment and let's test out the mirroring. See, it's going to be really slow for me because I have so many plug-in buttons that I just hit, and I have a Naga at home too that I have all my buttons kind of programmed. So I'm going to be a little clunky at first working like this. So it hurts a little bit. So again, I'm just blocking out my basic structural forms first. Then you're going to see me add in a support beam, because again, that's kind of a structural piece, the ceiling. And I'm going to test out duplicating it and see kind of how that feels. And on Wednesday, I'll go over splines, or not splines, but bend deformers. So in case you need things to, not splines, bend deformers. So if you need things to, curve, because again, how many mine shafts have you guys, well, how many mine shafts do you guys know of that are just, straight lines? Probably not many, right? I hope. Cool, okay. See, so I'm just going to test this out really quickly with the x-axis. So width-wise, I think I'm kind of okay with that. What do you guys think? Let's see, how do I feel about the height, though? I don't know, I'm kind of okay with that, too. I didn't mirror, I know, I needed to rotate it. But let's say that this is, my modular kit. Just combine this really quickly. And put my snapping point here. Actually, I think I want it here. And with my grid snapping on, I can test out the modularity with that. Now, this doesn't mean that all of my walls are necessarily going to look the same. Silhouette-wise, pivot placement, is there a difference between floor versus walls and the like? So Paul asked, with pivot placement, is there a difference floor versus walls and the like? So I think he's asking, where should you place the pivot? Again, a good rule of thumb for me is I always like to place my pivot wherever I want its snapping point to be. I do recommend trying to get your pivot placements the same. Now you will see me break this up. This won't be one piece that I use. I actually typically will have my wall piece be one mesh, my floor be one mesh, and my ceiling be one mesh, and then I will take it into Unreal. I'll group them together and I'll duplicate them that way. Combining was just a faster way for me to do it right now. But usually I will keep all of these meshes separate and then group them in Unreal so that way I can duplicate them easier, but they're still separate meshes. So that means that their light maps, their lighting will be calculated separately, the materials will be calculated separately, and it'll be a little bit more optimized. Does that answer your question, Paul? I know I kind of went on a different tangent there. Almost done, guys. No, Paul's here. He's all good. So what I'm going to be constantly doing is testing out the blocking out portion of this. So I do like the scale of this, but maybe I won't like it as much once I get a support beam in here, right? So I'm having to work really quickly here because I'm also wanting to go over, again, I don't really want to go over the competency with you guys just yet because I want you to focus on the pre-production. Again, I'm not looking to be perfect right now. I'm just getting some of those forms in here. So let's say here's one of the support beams. And maybe it goes in an angle. I normally I put snapping on, but I'm being lazy right now. So, you know, I have to ask myself, am I still okay with that scale? I think so. I think I'm still okay with that scale. Now, I don't know if this is how wide I want my support beam or anything like that. But again, I'm going to be rapidly prototyping these things, testing things out. And then on Wednesday, I will show you guys a farther along version of this because I will continue working on it. I will. So I'll show you a farther along version of this. Because again, I'm focusing on large forms to small forms. I don't want you guys getting your in-game models done yet. We won't really be working with high-res stuff unless you're making props for it. But really start getting in the overall feel of it. If you know that you're going to have barrels and crates in there, block those out too. Figure out everything that is going in your spaces, okay? I want you to, make yourself an asset breakdown sheet, make yourself an asset list. How many materials do you think you're going to need? How many unique materials do you think you need versus tiling materials? Now, how many of you guys don't know what tiling materials are? Everybody knows what tiling materials are? Awesome. Okay, so decide what's going to be tiling versus what's going to be a unique material. For example, would my floor be a tiling material or would it be a unique material? It would be a tiling material. What about my wood beam? It can be tiling or it can be unique. I might make a tiling wood material and then bring that material from Substance Designer to be used in Substance Painter, so I'm at least using a consistent wood type, and then use that for my breakup pieces as well. So there's going to be a lot of different routes that you guys are going to get to go. I'm going to go ahead and kind of close lecture with this. So as far as competencies go, what I'm going to want you guys to focus on is, again, your pre-production. Spend a lot of time. That way you guys are invested in this idea as well. Spend the time coming up with what you want to make. And, it can be bigger than I don't know, a mine shaft if you want. But just realize that set a goal for yourself. Try to get something done this entire month. Set a goal to get the environment done. It's going to be a lot of work. I would love to see you guys obsessed with this and just working on it constantly. To get a really good, solid, should we consider way to covering seam with beam? Okay, so he does ask a good question. He's asking about seams that would happen when we snap these together. Yes, typically I would probably use the beams to cover up the seams, to answer your question, Paul. So I would put it somewhere, probably like this. So that way whenever I duplicated that other piece, it would cover up that seam, which helps with lighting, helps with texture seams, things like that. So yeah, absolutely, Paul. You definitely want to consider that. There are times though where you're not able to cover up those seams depending on the environment that you're doing, and you do have these sort of longer pieces. So that's when things like light map resolution come into play, and we'll get into that during week 2. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Yes, Joseph.
When you were talking about tile materials and stuff that happen to like in Call of Duty, see that your gun is high-res, some of the certain areas are high-res, but when you walk by like a wall, it's really low-res. Is that just for the engine, to be able to process better?
A lot of times, yeah, it's for with first-person shooters like Call of Duty. The thing that players are paying attention to is not the walls. They're paying attention to the details of their weapons. They're paying attention to the details of the characters, things like that. So it really is kind of dependent on the game and genre, just in general. Did you ever play, what was Horizon Zero Dawn? That game was gorgeous. The characters were, really well done visually. The environments were really well done visually. Because again, as an exploratory game, you look at those sort of details, right? So it really just kind of depends on the engine. It depends on the type of game it is, things like that.
So,
No, you're good.
I'm very interested in I don't know if I should go there for that kind of stuff.
For this class, you're going to want to do the high detail, but working in Substance Designer, you're going to be able to scale those things down if you need to really easily. It allows you to work non-destructively. So you'll have the options to do things like LODs and whatnot very easily. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. So yes, mood board. How much time do I want you guys spending on your mood board? All the time, right? Come up with an idea that you're inspired to work on. And if you are not inspired to work on something that is, from your own creative mind, I do have pre-approved references that you guys can check out. It's all architectural looking things. You can even start there and expand upon that. That's fine. I realize this may not be the class for everyone. So there are some easier things on there. They all do hit that competency of working modularly. But if environments are something that you really, really are interested in, try to go this route. And again, you guys are my guinea pig students. I know this is the first time I'm kind of just dumping all of this on you. But do spend time, even if you're working with a single reference as your main inspiration, there's still going to be other reference images that you're going to need. Okay, so make sure that you guys are spending that time. After you are happy with your mood board, and I'm not saying don't add on to it later. If you decide to add on to your mood board, that's fine. I did the same thing. But then I want you guys to focus on blocking things out. Block things out. Take these into Unreal as well. When you're happy with your block out, bring them into Unreal and play test them. Again, you don't want to bring them all as one piece because collision is a real thing in Unreal. So we haven't gone over collision yet. So you can export out your static meshes, and I do have videos that go over how to export static meshes from Maya into Unreal, but I will also be going over those things Wednesday. So I'm just kind of saying if you do get all of that done and you're wanting to move forward, and again, don't just focus on the walls, the floor, and the ceiling. Think about the breakup pieces that you're going to have in there as well. Block out everything. Now, unless they're like I don't know, wires and things like that. I don't expect you guys to block out wires. Don't waste time like that. But any sort of, yes, Paul, I will definitely put the mood board that I have on Slack. Are you wanting the specific one that I did for class, or are you wanting kind of my finished version? The finished, you got it. I'll make it happen. And I'll also post that on FSO as well, so you guys have it too. So again, any piece that you guys are going to have in your scene, block it out, put it in, so that way you know exactly how much space everything is taking, okay? Do you guys have any questions before I let you go? Welcome to Environment Arts. Again, if you guys have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'm about to head to lab with you guys. I'll be on Slack during most of the hours. I'm even available, on the days that we don't have class. So please don't hesitate to reach out. We'll do critiques as well as you need them. But yeah, hopefully you guys will have fun this month. So we're in room number 4B132. Directly to the right. Yes?
This is probably a really basic question, but if I'm building all of the walls and everything for the so right now I'm building each one on its own layer. But doing on 0. And then I just close that layer, build the next thing, close that layer. Do they need to be on the 0 when I export the Unreal?
The pivot definitely needs to be on the origin, and that is something that I will go over with you guys on Wednesday, but I do have videos that go over that as well. But yes, when you're exporting your meshes, you need to make sure that your pivot is where you want it on the mesh, but that you have physically moved the model so that the pivot is at the origin and that you have zeroed out the transforms.
So set the pivot and go between, and that way it'll export at that to the scene. But
No, I'll sit with you and I'll go over that with you. So I will immediately start trying to upload the lecture. I will probably crop out. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and stop recording right now.